Hello, and welcome to another DevNet tutorial. In this video, I would like to cover how to integrate an external application inside the SuperOffice web client. What we're actually going to demonstrate is how to incorporate the Twitter application inside SuperOffice. I'm going to do that not by bringing in Twitter via a web panel, but what I'm going to actually do is create a brand new panel inside the SuperOffice application, as well as leverage SuperOffice web controls in order to build the look and feel, the SuperOffice look and feel inside the application. Now, what generally has to happen when you connect to an external application, you generally require credentials of some sort, and Twitter's no different. Twitter is going to ask me for credentials in order to get information that only I am allowed to see. So let's go ahead and click on this Twitter button, and what's going to happen is you're going to see this login dialog appear. Now let me tell you that this dialog is actually going to appear only the very first time you attempt to see this Twitter application inside SuperOffice. Essentially what it's trying to do is it will look at who you are, search the database for your stored Twitter credentials. If it does not find them, it will prompt you with this dialog. If those credentials are discovered, it's going to go ahead and just load up the window that we see behind the login dialog. So how does this happen? Well, behind the scenes there's a script specifically inside that dialog that will go ahead and check to see if you are a valid user. Now that's in conjunction with a data handler that will also run, that actually gets initialized when the dialog is first rendered, or prior to the dialog being rendered. So what's a data handler? Don't worry about that right now. We're actually going to go into it, but just briefly, if you're familiar with model view controller patterns, or more specifically model view model pattern, then 6web client follows that, and the view model is specifically related to the data handler. So let's go ahead and type in some credentials here and see what happens. So devnets, and then my password. Let's go ahead and log in. What's going to happen is behind the scenes it's calling a save method on the data handler, which is invoked when I click on the OK button or the login button. Then there's a callback that will go ahead and say refresh the archive control below here, so that I get in my Twitter feeds specifically for my friends, my own tweets, as well as any tweets that mention me. So there are a few things to note about the Twitter application embedded inside SuperOffice. First, this is a custom panel. This entire control that you see here, it is a custom defined page which contains 4 panels. There's the menu panel, the navigator panel, the button bar panel, and finally the Twitter panel. In the Twitter panel I've created a single card to contain essentially this tab look and feel. On this tab, or in this card, I've defined a view that contains a single control, a archive control, and that's what these grids are. Now, archive controls are populated by archive providers, and an archive provider is essentially a programmed view of data that is capable of retrieving data from any defined data source. That includes SuperOffice data in the SuperOffice database, anything from a web service, which I'm demonstrating right now, and any other location that you can imagine to bring data in. There are well-defined interfaces inside the NetServer API in order to construct these archive providers, and we're going to demonstrate that. Within archive providers you have these things known as entities, and entities allow you to assign specific roles to each individual row within an archive or an archive record. An entity is also allowed to display information or filter information based off the entities that are defined and how they're defined inside the archive provider. If we mark an entity as optional, automatically inside the 6web client on an archive control, we'll see the entities that were defined. Here I've defined 4 entities, one for public, friends, my own, as well as mentions. And these are directly related to the Twitter application and the actual type of messages I will see in my Twitter feed. There are also buttons down here on the bottom left that I can add into my archive control to be displayed at runtime. Also, within the rows of the archive control itself, I have the ability to right-click on any one of those records and also see a menu that I define inside the menu configuration of the 6web application. So these are some of the things that we're going to be looking at, how you can embed this type of functionality within your application. You'll have the ability to create a new button on the navigator bar. When you click on it, we saw that there was the login dialog that was shown, so we're going to create custom dialogues. You also have one additional dialog, and that is to add in a new tweet dialog, something I can start typing in information. I see over here how many characters I have left. If I go if I go over 140 characters, you'll see that now they're all marked as red, telling me there's a problem. And I come underneath 140, and I'm good to go. I go ahead and save that, and it would be persisted to Twitter. I also have the capability to have an existing row selected, and if I choose retweet, it'll go ahead and get that message, and looks like it wasn't selected correctly. So it will go ahead and grab that tweet, put that into the Twitter entry dialog for me, also with the retweet signature here at the very beginning. Same thing goes for reply, direct message, and reference message, just that you would expect in any other Twitter client. So to summarize, we have the button in the navigator pane. We have 2 additional dialogues. Behind those dialogues, we have an individual or a single data handler, also could be viewed as a view model, used in order to populate those controls as well as persist any changes in those controls, as well as an archive control custom designed to contain information from a custom archive provider. And there are several configuration settings that need to be changed or added behind the scenes inside the 6web configuration files. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at all of that and build this from scratch. So I hope you stay with me, enjoy what we have to offer, and happy coding.